All right, hopefully we are going live here. Wait for some feedback and for this to update. If you can hear us, start dropping in the comments that you're here and that we're live.
You're good, I can hear you.
All right, sweet. Looks like we're good to go here, Brigham.
Okay.
So yeah, excited to talk about this. Obviously today we're going to be talking about the Fortius Tents. This is the two-person here on the table, but we'll be just diving through a bunch of things. But while we're waiting for some people to hop on, feel free to start asking questions in the comments, or just let us know what you guys are up to this summer. Maybe some of the big plans you guys have. I know around our office, it's feeling more and more like summer. We just finished what felt like a lot of time out of the office, to me at least. We had some visitors come in, some partners. We were kind of showing around Utah, and then we went and hit the Grand Canyon and did rim to rim to rim. And then right after that, we flew out to Charlotte, North Carolina, and drove up to AT Trail Days, and then did 100 miles on the trail. So it's been pretty crazy around here, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm definitely excited for the summer. But yeah, as you guys are hopping on here, let us know what you guys are excited for this summer. How many of you guys have maybe joined the UL 100 challenge? I'd like to know if we have any of you guys on here as well. I'm excited to do that, and we've got some more big trips coming in the pipeline here. But so I'm just gonna, if you see me looking off to the side here, that's where I can see some of these comments. Otherwise we'll have some people, calling them in here. So and then I do have it kind of here on my phone if it's on my phone on the table. But yeah, so let's get started. We have a list here of a few of the questions. I have read, maybe 2 or 3 of these, but I have definitely not got through all of them. So some of this will be some pretty raw reaction to some of this stuff. But I guess to get it started, we have a lot of videos out there already that are public that go through the tent and the reason for the tent and why our design intent behind it. We did a podcast that just went live this week also that really breaks that down. So make sure that you go and check that out as well. But maybe just for starters, Brigham, what are you most excited about this tent? Like, this has been a work in progress for a while for us, but I don't know, what do you feel like you're just most excited about for people to get this tent in their hands, or what about it for you just works?
Yeah, well, so in terms of excitement, obviously I've been getting to use this tent for a couple years at this point. So, but for other people to use it, I'll try to relate what I'm excited about for people. Probably the biggest thing is just the confidence level in the tent. We talked about it in the podcast the other day, all the stormy nights, all the bad weather experiences we've had with the tent, and all the different environments and kind of locations we've used it. So for me, it's just been really affirmed as just a very confidence-inspiring shelter, which I think through bad weather and being cold and wet, I think those are the times that really drive home whether you're confident in something or not. So yeah, for me, that's probably the biggest thing is, in bad weather, that this is a tent that I want in my pack for sure.
Yeah, I definitely would second that. Having spent about 3 years sleeping in different variations of this, definitely built a ton of confidence around this piece. Had it in some pretty crazy weather conditions, and just kept improving it, and definitely excited with kind of this finished product that we've got. It really turned out excellent, and I'm stoked to be able to share this with you guys. But just a couple quick things here. Jeff, thanks for joining our challenge with this. I think you guys are going to really love that. We're actually working really hard to get the swag boxes out to you guys, so that'll be a lot of fun. But a lot of you guys are saying that you've picked up some of our gear or buying the Fortius. So thank you for that. I think you guys are also going to love the Fortius when we can get it out to you. Someone asked the prices. Right now, while it is on pre-sale to our Live Ultralight members, they're going to save $65 off of the tent. So it is $274, I think, for the 2-person, which is right here, and then $225 for the 1-person. You might want to check that, but that's roughly what I think it is. But you're going to have some bigger savings. And one thing that we've actually talked about is that we will probably do a tiered pre-sale price. So at some point we will change it from a $65 discount to a lower discounted price during the pre-sale process. And then obviously as we get really close to shipping, we'll take the pre-sale completely off. So just be aware of that. But yeah, start dropping comments down in here and I think we just dive right in. Obviously,
might as well.
There's tons of stuff that we can talk about. We've done a lot of that on some of these videos. So this video is really all about just answering questions. So very first one on our list here is, can 2 wide size sleeping pads fit into the 2-person tent? So I'm assuming that's a 25-inch wide pad, like our wide pads. And the answer to that is yes. If you look at the dimensions on the tent, it'll say 48. But we have consistently through the entire process been using 2 long wide pads in the tent. And to show you guys that, actually on Friday, I believe, we're gonna go out and do some more photography on the tent. We're gonna put 2 long wide pads in there, but really it's plenty forgiving to fit that in there. And keep in mind too, like the 48 inches wide is like in the bottom corners of the ends. And so the way that this tent kind of hangs down and whatnot, it'll fit. So we'll get photos of that for you guys. We'll also do a full video walkthrough, which we'll try to get out as quick as we can. That just kind of goes into more of the details. And we'll show you this piece because a lot of our footage is with the Arctic color. And this color right here is the blue. I'm not sure how the color is turning out on the camera here, but it's a deeper blue. It looks really, really sharp. So we're excited to have that color as well.
Yeah, real quick. So just to drive that home. So when Tayson said like it'll fit, that's not speculation. So for example, Derek is our marketing director. His wife actually works with us as well, and she comes on almost all the trips, and they use 2 wide pads exclusively in that tent. So it's not a question mark. It works.
Yep. Okay, I'll try to keep an eye on these comments as well as we read through a few of these other ones. But will someone who's 6'2" fit inside the Fortius 1-person tent? The answer to that is yes. Especially the version that's in production, for sure. We did some work on that to really increase some of the headroom, and especially at the head and the foot end. I just spent a bunch of nights in it, and in the rain, in extreme high humidity, and it works awesome.
And
so
Tayson, you're how tall?
I am 6'2". I used to be 6'3", so I try to claim that sometimes, but I'm really not there anymore. So, but yeah, I'm big. I'm 6'2", 200 pounder. So I fit very well in the tent. In fact, there's enough headroom in the tent that on my last trip, I had a 3.5 inch thick pad folded over, and I was sitting on it, and I still had room above my head. So lots of space inside there, especially for taller guys like us. How long will the Fortius be on pre-sale? I actually touched on that one. So we will keep it on pre-sale till probably about a week before we start shipping, but there will be a moment in time, probably sometime in June, I don't know when. We might give you a little bit of heads up on there, especially if you're a member, but of when we'll kind of do a pricing increase on the pre-sale. So be aware of that. So it does pay off to order a little bit early, and then eventually we will close that down. Usually we close it down about a week before we start shipping them. Why is it made out of sil nylon instead of sil poly? Doesn't nylon stretch? I'll let you tackle that one, Brigham.
Sure, happy to. Nylon does stretch. Polyester actually stretches as well. It stretches less than nylon. The common, assumption is that polyester doesn't stretch at all. It still stretches, just not as much as nylon. However, polyester as a fiber is significantly weaker, especially in tensile strength and tenacity, than nylon. So for a storm-worthy tent, it's much more important to have a stronger fiber, a stronger base fiber that comprises the entire fabric, especially at seams and guy line stakeout points and anywhere where there's sewing involved. In high winds, a polyester tent is weaker than a nylon tent. So yes, although nylon does stretch, that nylon fiber as a whole creates or allows for a higher wind tolerance and a higher stress tolerance overall for the tent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have numbers in front of us, but essentially to get the same amount of strength out of a polyester, we would have had to use a heavier weight polyester. But also for the goals of this tent, which is just performance in the field, storm worthiness, ability to take it on all the adventures that we do, nylon definitely was the choice. So, and I would just add to that too, like it does stretch, but if you set your tent up and then like retension it right before you go to bed, I've had no issues with it. It's really been a non-issue for me. And we've had it in some pretty humid environments out on the Appalachian Trail, getting rained on and things like that. You know, I'd set up my tent. You usually have your tent set up for an hour at least before you're asleep. And just right before, you know, you're climbing in for the night or sleeping, I just kind of retension everything and the sag leaves. And by morning, it like most of the sag is, like it doesn't just sag exponentially, I guess, right, per se. So it's really been a non-issue as well, but you do get more strength out of the nylon. So good question. I'm actually going to jump to a comment that is here on the live stream. From Tom, it says, living in the Northeast, I'm concerned about condensation. What are the design features to reduce interior condensation? So that's a really good question, and that was one that has been top of mind through the entire design process. In fact, some of the tweaks that we did right towards the end of this project, even increased our breathability more. So from maybe you talk about what we did, and I'll talk about my experience just recently on the AT and how effective it was. So
sure. So one of the things that is not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind when people think about that, but we use really long guy lines at the corners. All our guy lines, anywhere the tent is staked down, is long guy line length, and that allows for a little bit of extra pitch height. It's not infinite, but it does allow for more of that. So you can bring it down closer to the ground, you can get it higher off the ground. With the one person, the Fortius one specifically, our vestibules are large. So that one little bit keeps the nylon a little farther away from the sleeper or the person inside the tent. So having a larger vestibule that extends farther away from the tent also allows for more airflow just under the tent canopy, if you want to call it. If you're looking straight on at the tent, like looking at the one person front door, if you look straight through that to the back, we'll call that the back wall. So the back wall has a rear overhang, and that was something that we played with quite a bit, making it significantly lower and then going back to raising it higher, and that's for the ventilation. So that back wall is a vertical mesh wall, and then the rear overhang is enough to provide storm protection, rain protection, but it's kept higher off the ground to allow for more airflow and ventilation for air to come in or air to escape. And then on the one-person tent, we actually made it taller. We raised the height on the tent, and that allowed us to extend out the head and foot ends to allow for the mesh in between the bathtub floor wall and the edge of the fly. That allowed that mesh to extend farther out to help again with airflow, and then to help manage condensation that does occur, getting the edges of the fly farther away from the tent body, so that if condensation does run down, it's going farther away from the head and foot ends. And then the mesh at the head and foot ends is horizontal or negatively sloped, meaning it slopes down and away from the vertical walls of the foot end. So as if there is condensation that runs down the roof of the tent, it runs beyond the end of the floor at a downward angle. So if it hits the mesh is angled. If this is the side of the floor, the mesh is angled down towards the ground. So condensation can come down the wall or the ceiling of the fly and then extend well beyond anywhere where it could potentially run back into the tent. So that's kind of the main points on the one person. The two person, the long guy lines still apply. The two person has the advantage of being obviously much bigger and allows much more air movement within the tent, but it also has two doors, and again, the vestibules on that are very large. It has the same head and foot end mesh design, vertical mesh walls, and then, like I said, the large vestibule doors. You can, in almost all circumstances, leave one of those open, depending on, because of the direction the rain or the wind is coming. So,
or you can also zip down from the top of the vestibule. We put a second zipper head on those to be able to zip down and kind of vent from the top. I imagine that's one of the things people ask is like there's no upper. Oh man, I'm going to lose the word for it, but basically the opening that you can kick open on a lot of these for condensation, like a vent. And I mean, in my experience, and Brigham, you can answer this different, but the vents really, like using them on the shadow light and other pieces, they don't do as much, I think, as people really believe that they do. Having it open, closed, very little difference in condensation. And so we really just focused mostly on having these big mesh walls, vents all the way around the entire piece, and that really keeps the condensation down. So in the field, like I just mentioned, my most recent experience, at least with it, was out on the Appalachian Trail. There were nights where it was actively raining on us while I was setting up the tent, and then obviously you go into a super humid night, and it vents extremely, extremely well. One of the coolest parts about a trekking pole tent, in my opinion, is that you have some ability to customize it. And what I mean by that is, like, if you wanted to, you could pitch the poles maybe an inch or 2 inches higher and get a little bit more air movement underneath the bottom of the tent. Or if you've got, let's say, a lot of wind, you could maybe pitch it an inch or so lower to the ground than what we recommend. And you could kind of hug it down to the ground. And that customization is big, because in this scenario, I pitched it a little bit higher, had a little bit more airflow throughout the night, and condensation was a non-issue inside of the tent. In the morning, like what was I seeing? Basically, there was no beating up of any water. There was no running of water inside the tent on the inside of it. If I reached up and wiped my hand across it, yes, there's a little bit of moisture. But to me, that's like in one of the worst case scenarios, where extreme high humidity and actively raining through the night. And so honestly, one of the best or least amounts of condensation I've had in any tent. So I really think that some of the work we did, especially right at the end too, with the opposite side, I don't want to call it a vestibule, but pull out, you get a lot of airflow in there, which is really handy. Good question, by the way, Tom. Maybe a long answer. You also asked, Tom, just going on with your second question here, will the one person pack down to fit into one of the shadow light stretch pockets? The answer is yes, but not only will the one person fit into one of the stretch pockets, the two person will also pack into one side of the shadow light stretch pocket. So that gives you an idea of just how compressible these pieces are. There's, in the bag it might even look bigger than it really is, but you can really compress these pieces down and they'll fit into those stretch mesh pockets. I thought there was one other one here that I saw. Jeff Murray asked Brigham, are the seams double stitched and do they come already sealed from the factory?
Yep.
So that's a yes and a yes. We seal all of our seams. Let's see if there's another one here. I'll keep reading these, but jumping back over to the list that we have, will there be a dedicated video walkthrough? Yes, there will be a dedicated video walkthrough. I'm super excited for this tent. Do you guys use a footprint during your testing, or do you recommend using one?
So in testing, I've not once used a footprint. And, that's testing, right? So if you're going to test something, you're not going to know if you ever use a footprint, if you need one. So I've not once used a footprint, and that's been from Uinta Highline Trail all over the Utah deserts, Escalante, all around Zion National Park, Grand Canyon, Pacific Northwest and the Olympic Peninsula, and a lot of other Rocky Mountain locations. Dirt, grass, I've never used a footprint. It makes for a very dirty exterior floor bottom and extra cleaning jobs, but I've not once. Let's see. Do you recommend using one? Sure, I do recommend using one, but it's been tested 100% without a footprint.
And to my knowledge, I've never seen a hole or anything in the bottom of our tents, any of our prototypes. So durability-wise, it has stood the test of time, but I would also agree with Brigham. I'm always going to recommend you take really good care of your gear. So finding a Tyvek or a Polycro or something like that to toss under there is never going to be something I would not recommend. So will there be a video on how to set up the Fortius or any tips, tricks you found along your journey in this tent? Yes, absolutely. We've already filmed a video on how to set it up. So we've already got that done. We will also plan on doing some written instructions that we'll ship with every single tent. They're really easy to set up. And in that video, I think we really showcase that. They're quite quick to set up. But as it is something different, setting it up at your house once or twice will pay dividends in the field. But this is probably a good time also to just talk a little bit about one of the reasons we have such big confidence in this and why we can make claims like that. And to me, that just goes into a lot of things such as our guy lines. We have a lot of extra length on every corner tie-out point and on our guy lines and in all these areas. And that's very much so on purpose. There's definitely companies out there that shrink those down to where they're like 6 inches. And when you're trying to get a solid stake in the ground, sometimes you don't have a good place to get that stake in the ground within 6 inches. And so we found that having those longer guy lines is just incredibly useful in the field, whether we're in the desert fighting super hard ground and rocks, or whether we're up on a mountain peak fighting hard ground and rocks, or whether we're out on the Appalachian Trail finding lots of roots and rocks. It makes it very easy, very secure, and you've just got a lot of forgiveness in the tent. And then kind of the side benefit of having those longer lines on each corner as well is that retensioning or anything like that is super easy because you've got so much adjustment that you never have to restake a stake to get a good pitch. You typically can just loosen this corner, tighten this corner, and you've just got all sorts of movement, and it's really helpful in the field.
It allows for a lot of forgiveness and versatility. So it just makes less of a hassle, I think. Just in the pitching, the storm worthiness helps as well, but just for in the pitching, it just allows for just a little bit more leeway or room for error if you don't choose the best tent site.
Or for example, on the 2-person tent, we have 2 guy lines or poles on each big panel, head and foot end of it. And so obviously I guess what I wanted to say here is we're basically adding an extra ounce or so just of line, but to us, that accomplishes the whole purpose of this tent. Which is to make it storm worthy, make it be able to go where you need it to go, and those touch points are well worth noting. So, okay, so moving past that question now, I do not know what this is trying to say. The Nipafan on I'm just curious about the reasoning behind the width of the tent being 48. Is there a reason? Almost no one does 50 inches. I don't know if I've got a reason.
I can't speak for anybody else not doing 50 inches. We're trying to strike as best a balance as we can between keeping the tent really light but accomplishing our objectives with having confidence in inclement weather. So
let's talk about the taper too. You know what I mean? Because that was a part of it.
Yeah. So we've made many prototypes of this tent. We've tried different variations, configurations, dimensions, slight shape differences. We've had tapered floors. We've had square, equal symmetrical floors. So 48 inches allows for 2 wide paths, and we don't really want to go bigger than that. You can always say that what's a couple more inches in terms of weight, but one of our motto is live ultralight, and that you don't live ultralight by thinking what little bit more can I add. You think about what little more can we take away. but we still had, requirements, functional requirements that we had. So we found that 48 inches was adequate to fit wide pads. Like I said, not just Derek and his wife, but multiple other people in the company have spent many nights with 2 people with wide pads. And I guess the other thing is the proof is kind of in the pudding. Kind of the worst case scenario of having to use a tent is getting in your tent in a driving rain when it's 35 degrees and your clothing, gear, and body is soaking wet. And having to share a tent with somebody is, I would say, very undesirable. But in testing out this product, there's been many occasions where team members on this team have had to do that, and they've always come out, I would say, appreciative of the tent or confident in the tent. And so in testing, we felt like we had achieved the right balance of a tent that 2 people can crawl into, change their clothes into dry clothes, set up their sleep systems, keep their wet gear out in the vestibules, and we found it to be the right size. We try to please as many people as we can, but we have objectives and we try to find the right balance. And for this tent, we found that to be the right balance.
What on the one person? Is there a taper? What's the width of that?
The one person is not tapered either. And that goes into sleeping versatility, right? We don't want there to be a dedicated head or foot end to create that dilemma of, oh shoot, this is slightly uphill, this is slightly downhill, whether that's the one person or the 2 person. The one person's about 28 inches wide.
Yeah. We definitely looked at some of those options, and there's options out there that taper pretty heavily, have a really dedicated head area and a really dedicated foot area. And in testing in the field, you never have the perfect campsite. You never have the perfect area for your vestibule to pull out with your head on the correct end. And so, pretty quick we realized that we needed to be able to use it both directions for it to be able to perform in every situation for us. And so that was a part of that decision as well. But there is ample room in the one-person tent, I will say, as well. I've been able to bring my entire pack inside of the tent, unload it, distribute everything around my long, wide pad. And I mean, there's just a lot of, there's room, and there's very adequate room in there, especially considering the weights that these come in at. So, okay, I think there's a couple questions live here, so I wanted to jump back over to some of these live questions. Dan Hark is asking, is he going to use it bike packing? Do you plan on selling a separate rod? So pole?
It's in the works. Eventually, we will have separate poles, like dedicated poles for the tent, but those aren't available right now. Not
through us. We will have them eventually. I'm sure there are options out there for you to get the correct size pole and make this work for sure. So it should work for bike packing. Tom is asking, can I use my store credit towards this purchase? Absolutely, you can. Let me just see here. Greg is asking if his Compradel C3 cloud trekking poles will work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They work phenomenal. Love them. Okay, I'm going to jump back over here to some more questions. Does the one-person tent have 2 doors or just one? So it does have just one entry, one access point. So one of the vestibule, I should say, pulls off. I believe it goes 30 inches from the bottom of the tent out. It's a large vestibule. You can easily fit your pack in there, shoes in there, water in there. You've got plenty of coverage to also keep it away from any kind of wind being able to blow anything under the tent. Very large vestibule. On the other side, we have, I don't know what we need a name for this, but we're not calling it a vestibule because it's not really for storage, but it is a bit of an overhang. It's not meant for storage, it's just meant for coverage and venting per se. So could you throw things under there from the outside of the tent? You could, but you really shouldn't be necessary because the one vestibule is a large vestibule, should easily be able to fit your gear in there. So just one door on the one-person tent. thoughts and testing behind the choice of sil nylon versus polyester. We already hit that. Will the video be available showing different size users in the tent? I'm sure we can kind of showcase that. I'm sure when we do the full video walkthrough, I can lay in the tent for sure, and you'll be able to see that and get a good judge there. But one of our members of our team, Derek, he's, how tall are you, Derek?
5'8".
5'8". So if you ever see him in there, which I think he's in a lot of the Fortius video shots to begin with that are like on the page, he's 5'8". You can see him kind of laying in there and moving around. So that should give you some ideas on size and what it's like inside of the tent. Was there a consideration for dual vestibules on the one-person tent? Yes, there was. We did look at, offering access to the other side, and the way that it all played out and the way that we changed that side vestibule, as well as just the lack of a need for an additional vestibule, we ended up not, creating an access or a point of entry on that side. So just really wasn't a need, and the way that we ended up pulling that side up for excellent venting, it's really not built to cover an excessive amount of gear over there. So, okay. I think we hit a lot of these, so we're kind of at the end of the questions we have. If you've got questions right now, make sure to pop them down in the questions on this live, and we'll continue to answer these. Let me just take a quick second to see if I missed any here.
Do you want me to read through some that have been coming in that we've kind of...
Yeah, if I've missed any that we can answer for sure.
Okay. Well, there's one right here by David that says, other than trekking poles, what are the options? It looks like the handle end is up on other similar products.
Yes. So on
And the other similar products have the other way around. Excuse me, I didn't read the question right. So other similar products have it the other way around. Like, how does the trekking pole work with our tent, and what other options are there?
Like handle up or down?
Yeah.
Handle up.
So it's handle up, but also if you're asking like if there's other ways to pitch it, if you don't have trekking poles, basically where that handle goes up and into is a very reinforced point. So you could use a typical tent pole that was cut to the right size, or if you bought the right size, which would be, you'd have to look at the specs on the page for this, but around 48 inches, that would also work for the tent. It's not going to puncture a hole or anything like that if the handle isn't there. Obviously, don't put the pokey part of a trekking pole up there. It's not designed for that. But if you've just got a regular aluminum pole or carbon fiber pole, tent pole, like the rounded edge on that will be just fine up in that corner. So
Drew wants to know, how many stakes does it actually take to pitch the tent? Basically, that's barring anything like wind or storms.
Yeah. So it's six stakes. You've got 4 on each corners, and then the 2 for the vestibules. That's the required ones. We ship 8, so that you also have 2 to pull out either any of the storm points, which one of the coolest parts of the tent is that there's clippable and movable storm points, and you can buy extras of those if you want the convenience of those, or you can tie additional lines yourself to the D-rings that go around the tent. But then also on each head and foot end, there are pull-outs so that you can get a little bit more head room inside of there, or foot room inside of there. So having those 2 extra stakes is typically usable. 6 is plenty to pitch it and sleep in though, but we give you 2 extra just for your own customization.
Okay. Brian is asking, how well does it shed water?
Like rain? I'm assuming, talking about rain, very well. Yeah, very well. These tents have been extensively tested in heavy rain. I don't know what else to say.
Non-stop
yes,
rain.
Yeah.
What about snow, Brigham?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they've been tested successfully with very wet, heavy snow. So, and they shed that as well. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see here. People keep asking on the deadline. We have not named a deadline. We will let you know when the deadline is, but expect a price jump in June, and then expect the pre-sales to probably end sometime around the end of July. So you've got about a 2-month window to pre-order. You've got about a month window to get the best possible price on this. Let's see if we missed any. I think we might have got them all, at least for right now. Obviously, we'll answer as many questions as you guys have over in our Live Ultralight Facebook group, or if you email us directly at support@ourvitals.com, we're happy to answer questions at all times. But if you've got any questions specific to me or Brigham, now's your last chance. But really appreciate you guys jumping on here. We really are ecstatic about this tent. The amount of confidence we've built in it is exceptional. The weight is, and the pack size and stuff like that is exceptional. It's really become just our go-to piece for everything now, and can't say enough good things about it. Super excited to share it. The level of detail that goes into these tents to make them at this level is exceptional. I would just add that. You know, people have been asking for a lot of years, when's this coming? We did have some hiccups with production, you know, at the start of COVID and 2020, but you know, barring that, just dialing in these details makes all the difference in the world. You guys might have watched the video I did back in December where I took a tent out, and it was in my negative 41 degree freezing video. I don't remember what the exact title is, but I took a tent out from someone else to do hot tent setup, and you know, it just felt like it was like an 80-85% complete piece. And that really matters when you're out in the field. And if you're ever faced with more extreme temperature conditions or weather or wind or whatever it is, that stuff really matters. And I feel confident that you guys are going to see and appreciate the level of detail that went into this. And just, this is going to be your favorite piece. So I'm excited to get these out to you. Those of you that have already pre-ordered, thank you very much. We do appreciate that. We're excited. You guys are our people, right? Like, you guys that are pre-ordering, you get the tents first, you get to review them first, you get to give us the feedback first, and that's all important to us. So we really do appreciate it. You guys are basically our ambassadors. And so thank you for hopping on early, having the trust in us to pre-order these, and I'm sure that we won't disappoint. So we really appreciate that.
So we do have a few more questions, Tayson, that have come in.
Okay.
Parker is asking what the hydrostatic head rating is and the floor denier.
So all the nylon fabric is 15 denier ripstop nylon. It's 1500 millimeter hydrostatic head.
Okay. And then there are a few other questions that are non-related to the tent. One's about, there's been a couple of people asking about the Cody UL backpack and when that's shipping.
Yeah, so the updates that are on Kickstarter is as much as I can really share on that, but just know that things are moving in accordance to what we've said last. We are going to push super hard to get them shipped as soon as we can, but I did actually just get kind of a freight update on that, and things are right on schedule, maybe even a little ahead of schedule, so really excited about that. But I'll probably be putting an update in there, say early June. I've got some pictures that I'll share in there with some finished packs that we had FedEx to us, but basically they are in transit to us right now. They are on the water, and but that can still mean, you know, some time. So we'll keep you updated as much as we can on that.
And then we also had somebody asking about a sleeping pad. They said that in some videos they've seen that we were working on a sleeping pad, and what's the update on that?
Yeah, this isn't a sleeping pad video, so I don't know who's trying to sneak these questions in, but it's in the works, it's moving forward, and you'll definitely hear about it this year. As we get a little bit closer, we'll tease out like a month or something like that, but same type of thing. They're rolling forward and moving quickly, and should have them. Well, I won't say yet. We're under strict lockdown. We've had to get more strict with our lockdown, so I can't tease out as much as I maybe used to, but expect them this year, and not by the end of the year either. So, okay, I think let's go ahead and wrap this up. Really appreciate it, guys. We will share this link over in the Live Ultralight membership Facebook group, and we'll leave this up on our channel for a short amount of time, and then we'll actually pull this unlisted. So if you want to see these videos, make sure to keep tuning in live. We appreciate that, but to get the best results for us on YouTube, we will pull these off and just have links maybe on our website to view this. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and make sure you subscribe so we can see you on the next one.